self-realization in different ways, by karma yoga, by jnana yoga, by dhyana yoga, by raja yoga, by bhakti yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life, in all spheres and fields, social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in their different branches. But here, the goal of all such inquiries is explained. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry about life, and the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead, and here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses, from Aham Eva to this verse, Etavadeva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection and the darkness, and as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of the material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. The world, the whole material existence has sprung up because of our sense gratification. Desire is based principally on the desire of sex, and the result is that in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all the activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here is the real goal of life, and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of bhakti yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all of the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before such a spiritual master, who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master, in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master, in that bona fide chain of disciplic succession, never claims to be the Lord himself, although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord, in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. The revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end, but because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, the whole direction is targeted toward the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. But for want of a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Brahmaji, or the direct hearer, Arjuna, there are different distortions of the revealed knowledge by many unauthorized persons who just want to satisfy their own whims. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars in the horizon of the spiritual sky. Yet the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of Bhagavad Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. Such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, practically the same instruction has been imparted as in the 4 prime verses of Bhagavatam. But due to wrong and fashionable interpretations by unauthorized persons, one cannot reach the ultimate conclusion. In Bhagavad Gita 18.61, it is clearly said, Ishvaraha sarva bhutanam hridesharjuna tistati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Lord is situated in the heart of all living beings as Paramatma, and he is controlling all of them in the material world under the agency of his external energy. Therefore, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is the supreme controller and that the living entities are controlled by the Lord. In the same Bhagavad Gita, 18.65, the Lord directs as follows, Man manha bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mam evasyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. It is clear from this verse of Bhagavad Gita that the direction of the Lord is that one should be God-minded, a devotee of the Lord, a worshipper of the Lord, and must offer all obeisances unto Lord Krishna. By so doing, the devotee will undoubtedly go back to Godhead, back home. Indirectly, it is said that the whole Vedic social construction of human society is so made that everyone acts as a part and parcel of the complete body of the Lord. The intelligent class of men, or the Brahmanas, are situated on the face of the Lord. The administrative class of men, or the Kshatriyas, are situated on the arms of the Lord. The productive class of men, the Vaishyas, are situated on the belt of the Lord, and the laborer class of men, the Sudras, are situated on the legs of the Lord. Therefore, the complete social construction is the body of the Lord, and all the parts of the body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Sudras, are meant to serve the Lord's whole body conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Therefore, even the great scientists, the great philosophers, the great mental speculators, the great politicians, the great industrialists, the great social reformers, etc., cannot give any relief to the restless society of the material world because they do not know the secret of success as mentioned in this verse of Bhagavatam, namely, that one must know the mystery of Bhakti Yoga. One must know the mystery of Bhakti Yoga. In Bhagavad Gita 7.15, also it is said, Namam duskritino mudha padyante naradhama mayaya faratagyana asuram bhavam ashrita. Because the so-called great leaders of human society are ignorant of this great knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and are always engaged in ignoble acts of sense gratification, bewildered by the external energy of the Lord, they are stubborn rebels against the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they never agree to surrender unto him because they are fools, miscreants of the lowest type of human beings. Such faithless non-believers may be highly educated in the material sense of the term, but factually they are the greatest fools of the world because by the influence of the external material nature, all of their so-called acquisition of knowledge has made them null and void. Therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being misused by cats and dogs fighting with one another for sense gratification. And all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, nationalism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoiled by being used as dresses for dead men. There is no utility in the dresses used for covering a coffin of a dead body, save getting false applause from the ignorant public. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore says again and again that without attainment of the status of Bhakti Yoga, all the activities of human society are to be considered absolute failures only. In Bhagavatam 5.5.5 it is said, Parabhavas tavad abodha jato yavana jigyasata atmatatvam yavat kriyas tavad idam manovai karmatmakam yena sarira bandha. As long as one is blind to inquiring after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat because the aim of human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. The function of the human body is to attain freedom from material bondage, but as long as one is fully absorbed in material activities, his mind will be overwhelmed in the whirlpool of matter, and thus he will continue to be encaged in material bodies life after life. Bhagavatam 5.5.6 says, Evammana karma vasam prayunkte avidyayatman upadhahi yamane pratirnayavanmai vasudeve namuchate deha yogena tavat. It is one's mind that generates different kinds of bodies for suffering different kinds of material pains. Therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience, and thus one is sure to be subjected to material bondage in different bodies again and again, until one develops a transcendental love for Godhead, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person. To become absorbed in the transcendental name, quality, form, and activities of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization, and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in different material bodies. So we will stop our reading here for today. And before we end, if there are any comments from anybody?
Yes. Can I ask something?
Yes, Dr. Sue.
Yes, actually, I have some problem understanding the concept of faith. Like, faith is always, as I understood, it's always attached with some kind of devotion and discipline, because these two things are necessary to have faith, devotion and discipline. But what kind of discipline is required here to have the Krishna Prem, that you will guide me? And there are, in every faith there is a kind of discipline, rules, you can say rules, and to be followed, and to have a kind of state of attachment, and remove from a state of detachment from the material world, and you have to come to a spiritual world, because there is always an obstruction where you find a desire is something which is a kind of obstruction is always there. And how to do that, how to get rid of that, that is one thing just finding difficult to have. And there is always a kind of saying, like if we go by Jain philosophy and other things, so they always says that there is two kind of things one can do, that one is Mahabrat and one is Anubrat. So Anubrat is for the people who are staying in the family, still they can maintain a kind of discipline and have faith on God and surrender to God within the family also. Okay, and remove the desires or the negativity within you. That is one thing. And other thing is that as the asceticism or a kind of guru who has realized the state of transcendental reality. So that is another, is Mahabrat. So even if we are in Anubrat, so what are the kind of disciplines we should follow? That is one thing. And the second is that what is the relationship between the God, self, and the world? Third thing, that how do you define mind and body? That's my question.
So start with what you were asking about faith, devotion, and discipline. Well, the scriptures tell us that actually faith is required before devotion. It says ado shraddha, right? First comes faith. So once we have faith, it means we have some attraction. It's an initial kind. Of course, faith develops as we engage in devotional activities under the guidance of a Vaishnava, but some attraction, some sincere, heartfelt attraction is necessary just to begin the process of devotion, where the next step is sadhu sangha. And then when we're having sadhu sangha, we're associating with the devotee. Means not just having our body associate. That's not association. Association means hearing the concept that the sadhu is saying, and then actually applying that to our life. And then as we see how the application of the principles that the sadhu has given us, how we see that changes our experience, slowly but surely, from material entanglement to Satchidananda, because that is a practical thing that we will see in our life if we apply the principles of bhakti sincerely, and we really, as much as we can. We're finite, we can't do it by ourselves, of course, but as much as we can, we should try. Then we'll see that devotion is coming, that it is developing, and faith is growing with that. Now, discipline, of course, is through becoming a disciple. Discipline means we're not just following the whims of our own mind. We are taking the instruction of the bona fide guru, of the bona fide Vaishnava, who has themselves already been disciplined by the bona fide guru. And of course, this whole process is Guru Parampara, which begins with Krishna himself, as we're reading in Bhagavatam just today. So discipline means that we are giving up attachment to following the whims of our own mind, which are always changing like the direction of the wind. And we're taking the instruction and direction and the sweet guidance of Guru instead. That is discipline. And we can only do that if we have that initial faith, that initial attraction to Guru. And then this process of devotion, of sincere devotion, which culminates in Krishna Prem, then this is a dynamic activity. It's not that any of these things necessarily, these don't stop. Faith is growing. The more we associate with the sadhu, the more that our mind is disciplined by following the instruction of Guru. Both devotion and faith are growing, so it's a very dynamic interaction between these three things. So now the second part of your question was about this, how you explained it was Anuvrat and Mahavrat, right? We're in family life. So how does, what do we do? Does it mean we have to completely give up family life and leave everything behind? Or is there some middle ground? Or so what is the thing? So the thing is Yukta Vairagya, right? Yukta means union, Vairagya means giving up. So it means we're giving up the lower and we're accepting the higher. Whatever is not, so this is also touching on the principles of Sharanagati. The two of the big ones are rejecting what is not favorable to devotion and accepting what is favorable to devotion. So now, if in our family life, we have the opportunity that our family members, whether or not they are exactly following the principles of bhakti themselves, if still they are supportive of our desire to follow them, and they are respecting that and not trying to force their own, force us to try to do what they want to do. Instead, they're giving us that space and encouragement, and in fact, are willing to even, be open-minded enough to see that what we are doing is changing our life in a positive way. And then so maybe they will hear something. They will just be open to hearing more, being a little open-minded. If our family life is like that, if it's conducive to devotion, if it's helpful to the development of bhakti, then of course, we don't have to leave that. Grihastha life is a factual, in the Varnashram system, Grihastha life is there, of course. In the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Pancha Tattva, right? Is Mahaprabhu, is Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas. Srivas Thakur is a grihastha, is a family man. And he is having Mahaprabhu, when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srivas is having Mahaprabhu and all the devotees come to his house, and they are having huge kirtans. They're even putting on dramas where Mahaprabhu is acting, actually. They're having these dramas and they're having prasadam. And so they're using the family life as a platform to spread Krishna consciousness in a very happy way, in a very loving way. So of course, everything can be used in the devotion of Krishna. However, if we find ourselves in a family life which is very demanding and is taking us away from devotion, then, naturally, based on our sincerity to develop Krishna prema, then we will reject anything that is not favorable to devotion. Then we will reject family life. But it's not absolutely necessary. It depends on the circumstance. And so your next question was, what is the relationship between the soul, God, and the world? Actually, we have been working on for some time putting together a lot of the writings of Sripad Bhaktimadhava Puri Maharaj into a book, which hopefully in the next, sometime in the near future, we'll be able to publish. And the name of the book that Sripad Bhaktimadhava Puri Maharaj has given is The Science of Life, Soul, God, and the World. So it's very important. Of course, these are the three main topics of philosophy, as this is what Maharaj has presented, of course. So this is not some kind of pantheism where we are saying God and the world are the same thing. Of course not. God is the absolute supreme being, the ground in which all other finite being participates in. So the world or nature is Bahiranga Shakti, is the external energy of God. Bahiranga Shakti. The soul is Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potency. And then God, everything is a part of God's energy. So we're saying Bahiranga Shakti, Tatastha Shakti. God is Shaktiman, who is the owner and possessor and controller of the Shaktis, all Shaktis. And now, if we're absorbed in the Bahiranga Shakti in the world, because we're on the margin, we can either go outside external energy or inside internal energy, the Antaranga Shakti. So if we're absorbed in the outside in the world, then we are still being controlled by the Lord, but in a manner in which we're not conscious of the Lord's existence, and we think that we are the center and we're trying to exploit the environment to satisfy our own whims. But if we have enough humility and some sincere, heartfelt attraction towards the reservoir of all of life, the reservoir of pleasure, right? Akila Rasamrita Murti. Krishna is Akila Rasamrita Murti, the reservoir of all pleasure, or the emporium of rasa. So if we have some sukriti to recognize this a little bit, and we have the association of the devotees, then we're being attracted to this antaranga shakti, the internal energy of the Lord. So in this way, in very general, we can see that this is the relationship between soul, world, and God. And then the difference between mind and body, of course, in Western philosophy, mind is kind of an umbrella term for what in Eastern and Vedic philosophy is, very specific concepts. We have manas, ahamkar, buddhi, chit. So of course, those are very different things because buddhi, ahamkar, and manas they're material. They're subtle material elements. And then of course the gross material elements are the pancha, the five mahabhutas. Yes. Pancha mahabhut. So that's material energy. So once we are already choosing to be self-centered and have our life centered on sense gratification, then the mind comes, the ego, false ego comes, ahamkar, and the intelligence comes to figure out how to exploit that environment. And the body comes based on our karma and guna, which is made out of, Prabhupada was just saying this in the purport. So anyway, the mind and body are coming as a result of guna and karma in the material world. But consciousness, which is aware of all this, Prabhupada is telling, the Vaishnavas are saying, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. So the mind and the body are there, but we can be aware of the mind. We can be aware of our thoughts. We can be aware of our bodily feelings. So that consciousness is higher than both mind and body, right? We can be aware of our thoughts. We can be aware of our desires. That means that consciousness is higher than mind. Consciousness is higher than body. So we start to inquire about consciousness, and then we start to recognize consciousness. Who is conscious? So then we inquire about the self. And then so now we're on the platform of Vedanta Sutra, Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Who am I? Right? Or Kayami is who am I? And Vedanta Sutra is starting then Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now you realize you are a spirit, you must inquire into spirit. So like that, we can understand that mind and body are different, but they're also very similar in that they're both in the material world. I think that's all I can say for today, because Srila Shanta Maharaj is actually about to start his class.
Yes.
So, Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Navadipam Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Vishangapuri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Sabhadra Jagannath Guru Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Hari 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 Bo.
Thank you so much.